For today's going to be a little bit of a change of pace, different kind of episode than what you guys are used to, and I'm going to have Jake tell us a little bit more about that.
All right, so I hope that this episode is well received, but I am going to give a sensitive content warning. This episode is going to cover sensitive content such as mental illness, family trauma, suicide, and loss of a child. So if you are sensitive to these topics, please just proceed with caution.
Awesome.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. And and we have a very special guest with us today. The third and actually I would say most important partner in Natura Pest Control, a Wonder Woman and business genius, my wife, Eric's sister, Jana Claus.
I definitely told you not to call me Wonder Woman.
Yes, you certainly did.
Jake, you gave up her whole secret identity. How could you?
You guys are awesome. It's great to be here.
Welcome to the Bug Bucks Podcast, a podcast designed to turn you into a bug money millionaire. This episode is brought to you by Bug Bucks Plus, the #1 training and education platform designed to help you build and scale your pest control company. I'm your host, Eric Bassett, and of course, next to me, the one and only Jake Claus. What's up, dude?
What's up, Eric, and my fellow Bug Bucksers?
Yeah, man, it's gonna be an interesting episode today. We're going to tell you a little bit more about that, but before I do, I just want to remind everybody listening, the best way to receive new episodes is by subscribing to our show on your preferred podcast platform like Apple, YouTube, Audible, or Spotify. If you love the show, please leave us a rating and a review. Make sure to check out our Facebook group, Bug Bucks Plus. That is BUGBUX Plus. Over 4,400 other pest control owners in that group waiting to connect with you and share their thoughts. It's also the best way for you to share your feedback on our show and have your questions highlighted and discussed here on the podcast. So make sure you find us on Facebook and join the group. So as we were saying before, today's going to be a little bit of a change of pace, different kind of episode than what you guys are used to, and I'm going to have Jake tell us a little bit more about that.
All right, so I hope that this episode is well received. But I am going to give a sensitive content warning. This episode is going to cover sensitive content such as mental illness, family trauma, suicide, and loss of a child. So if you are sensitive to these topics, please just proceed with caution.
Awesome.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. And and we have a very special guest with us today. The third and actually I would say most important partner in Natura Pest Control, a Wonder Woman and business genius, my wife, Eric's sister, Jana Claus.
I definitely told you not to call me Wonder Woman.
Yes, you certainly did. And I proceeded against medical advice.
Jake, you gave up her whole secret identity. How could you?
You guys are awesome. It's great to be here.
Yeah, well, we've been wanting to have Jana as a guest on the podcast forever, because Jana is an absolute. I mean, this business would not run without Jana. She is a savvy, brilliant businesswoman. She is a technical genius. She's a marketing genius. She is a leader in the business and in every aspect of her life. And I just am totally out of my depth being both married to Jana and being partnered with Jana. But the reason why Jana is here on the podcast today with us is because we are going to be discussing a topic that's very sensitive to us and very, very, very close to home topic. So a lot of you, if you watch the podcast on YouTube, you probably have noticed that there's a sticker on the front of my laptop here it's our son, Jess Melvin Claus. And the end of April this last year, we can edit out these long pauses, right?
if we have to, yeah.
Yeah. So at the end of April, dude, I totally thought that I could just, you know what? I'm going to tell it like it's like I'm telling a story. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Listen, if you don't want to see a grown man cry or grown-ups cry, then just
Maybe just listen to it.
Just listen to this one. Don't watch the episode on YouTube. Okay, so yeah, so at the end of April this year, April 24th, our 14-year-old son took his life, and it was completely unexpected. And you know, he had been suffering some mental illness issues, and you know, I think that we might talk about that a little bit also. You know, just how serious and real and acute mental illness can be. But yeah, Jess was just a couple months shy of his 15th birthday, and the boy was just the most incredible, phenomenal, interesting, weirdest, most captivating, engaging human being that we have ever known. There was just nobody like him. He was just a completely funny and wonderful and unique kid. And yeah,
I would say what was so interesting about the way that it happened is that, you know, normally when a couple loses a child, maybe it's something that they experience together. Maybe it's something they experience, you know, not in the presence of one another, or maybe neither of them are there when it happens. But what was so unique about this situation is that the three of us who are business partners also experienced this loss together. We all happened to be together that night.
Plus Brinley.
And yeah. Eric's wife, Brinley. And we were all at home, all at our home, and Eric and Brinley were there that week. And so it's been an interesting thing to have experienced this not only as a couple who loses a child, but also as a business partnership where we're all family. So Jake and I lost a son, Eric lost a nephew, and it all happened to us simultaneously. So it's been a journey. We're still trying to figure out how to process that personally, but also how to move forward professionally, which is why I feel like we wanted to share and wanted to talk about that, because it's, you know, when you have a family company, experiencing a tragedy or a death within your family that is close enough in some way to have a serious impact on you is probably going to happen.
Yeah, and I, you know, obviously it's difficult to proactively think about the gravity of a situation like this. And so for, you know, if you're listening in and you've gone through something like this before, you probably get it. But until you go through it, it's really hard to understand. And, you know, you think that you have your priorities squared away until something like this happens. And it just, it completely shakes up your whole idea of what's important, and how you want to spend your time and who you want to spend your time with. And, you know, I'm glad we're having the conversation, because it has had such a tangible impact on our company. You know, I remember the morning after, right? And we'll fast forward all the way to, you know, probably 6 or 7 a.m. the next morning after everything happened.
We should probably go back.
We could, yeah, we can go back first a little bit,
because it will make more sense as to how difficult that conversation would have been at the time that you had it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. We'll just go. Yeah. Just go timeline.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what we'll do.
Yeah, let's do timeline.
We'll do timeline. Okay, so you know, we had known about Jess's, obviously about his mental illness and he'd been seeing a counselor and a
psychiatrist,
and he'd been on some medications to help with the depression and that kind of stuff. And Jana was very, very clued in to what was going on with him. None of us knew, not even his psychiatrist. Like, nobody knew. Jess had never let on just how serious his idea of suicide was. So even though we had known about it, and a couple months before, back was that in February?
Yeah.
Back in February, in talking to the psychiatrist, he had mentioned that he had suicidal thoughts, and they talked about it. And then after that, he didn't have any, right?
Yep. He started a new medication. Things seemed to be going really, really well in a positive direction. In fact, we went on 2 different family vacations. He had a great time, was getting along with his siblings. We were spending a lot of time together because he was doing school online. And so we thought we had a really, really good handle on it. And we thought that things were progressing really well. And so the day before it happened, he had said, hey, I'm having these feelings like I just don't, feel like I want to do school anymore, and I don't want to do these things. And poor kid, he just hated school. And so, as a mother, the thing that occurred to me was, hey, I just need to keep him with me. And so we had him, sleep in our room, and he woke up the next morning, and I was thinking, well, do we need to go in somewhere? What do we need to do, right? And I checked in with him, and he was doing seemingly a lot better.
Yeah, really well.
So we spent the whole day together. We actually had kind of a perfect day as a family.
He came to the office.
Yeah, he came to the office that day. We went on a walk. We had lunch.
Jess and his baby sister.
Yeah,
she just turned
Jill.
10. Yeah, so
yeah, we walked around. We got pizza. The boys, Jake and Eric, were recording a podcast episode, and we waited for them to be done and went home and had dinner together, played together. It was a good night. We went to bed that night and stayed up all in our room. We were having a sleepover with the kids and watching a documentary. A couple of the kids went down to their own rooms, went to bed. Mm-hmm. Jess and Jill stayed in our room. And we went to bed feeling so peaceful. Like everything was going really, really well. We felt extremely blessed, and like we just had a lot to be thankful for. And that was at about 11:55, just before midnight. And about 20 minutes later, we woke up to just I woke up to a loud sound, and I woke up Jake. Immediately called Eric, who was also sleeping there at the house, and said, hey, I think something's going on.
Mm-hmm. And so as Jana's calling Eric, I went and got my pistol, and because we thought it was an intruder. Mm-hmm. And so anytime there's ever been a sound in the house and I go to clear the house, I always, first thing is just check on each of the kids, make sure each of the kids is where they're supposed to be. So I look down, Jill's there, and then I glance over to the bed where Jess is sleeping, and I saw, in the moonlight, I saw Jess. Later on, we realized it was just the blanket kind of rolled up and pushed to the side of the bed, but in my brain, I saw Jess. So anyway, I went downstairs to check on the other 2 kids, and there we found Jess. He was in the shower in that room, and he had taken a pellet gun and shot himself through the eye. And Eric and I found him, mm-hmm. And he was still breathing, still had a heartbeat and everything. So Eric and I took him out to the family room. Jana came out and called 911. And Jan was on the phone with 911. I think I mentioned this before on the podcast. I'm a part-time firefighter, EMT on our little local fire department, and so I told Eric, go get my med bag out of the back of my truck. Eric came in with the med bag, and we just...
You guys worked on him.
We worked on him. My brain kind of went into like into the muscle memory mode of the EMT training that I've had over the years, and we established an airway, got him on oxygen, took all of his vitals, and strangely enough, his vitals were perfect. Yeah. He had like his blood pressure, heart rate, breathing, everything was like perfect, which we couldn't quite figure out, right? So so then I established an IV, and we're just waiting for the fire department to show up.
But I became completely non-functioning, just lunatic, which I think makes sense. But Jake and Eric were really, really calm, did everything they possibly could. Looking back at it in hindsight, the situation went as well as it could have possibly gone. But he was gone already, and we didn't know.
Yeah, we didn't know. We didn't know until a little bit later. But yeah, then the fire crew arrived, and we had it's called the CISM, or a critical incident stress management meeting later on with. I guess he's like the county chaplain, maybe, but he met with us and the crew that was there that night. And one of the things that he said is that this has never happened in the county. And we thought that was really strange because,
tragedies
happen all the time. Mm-hmm. And he said, no, what's unprecedented is that this happened to a department member in their home, and their own department crew is the responding unit. So my fire crew showed up. Obviously, these guys are like fire family. We know each other. We know each other's kids. We know what's going on in each other's lives. I mean, we're like a family, right? And the medics that showed up, same thing. We have a very, very, very close working relationship with our ambulance company. So they showed up. We transported Jess. He was life flighted, and because I got special privilege, I guess, because I'm on the department and I'm his dad, and so I got to fly. I was on the life flight with Jess when we got to the hospital, and it was there that they did the scans, and this was actually one of the first miracles about this whole thing, is that because it was a pellet, the pellet passed directly through the midbrain, so his consciousness was gone immediately, but the involuntary functions were completely intact. So that's why when Eric and I found him, like he was already gone. Like who he was already gone. Mm-hmm. But he never stopped breathing. His heartbeat never stopped beating. He retained all of his other body functions, which was a total miracle because it made Jess a perfect candidate for organ donation. And that was one of the first things that we thought, okay, if there's going to be a silver lining in this, which, like I said, strangely, there have been several silver linings in this, but that was one of the first ones that we saw. So back at the house, Jana and Eric and Brinley obviously stayed behind, and Brinley had the other kids, the girls. Mm-hmm. She grabbed them and was waiting with them in our bathroom, and
where you're like, okay, what are we doing now, right?
Yeah.
And then with any type of situation related to a firearm, the sheriff shows up.
Yeah.
Right. So we have a county sheriff that has to come and ask us questions.
I was
Definitely more
sure
sterile.
I was going to get arrested.
Yeah.
Like no joke, I was sitting there, with my 3 remaining children and thinking, okay, Jake's at the hospital with Jess, and I am about to be arrested and taken to jail, because of course as a mother that's the first thing you feel is responsible. So I remember just saying, Eric, you got to talk to him, because I don't even think I could talk to them without saying I'm responsible, for this. I lost him, So Eric talked to the police officers, and while they were still there talking to us, that's when we got the call from Jake. It only took about an hour after they left before Jake called. And I answered the phone, and he, knowing me and that I appreciate direct communication, he said right away, Jana, he's died. He's dead. And I fell onto the floor. Eric caught me. We were both on the floor, and I think at that point the police officers thought, okay, I think we have enough. I think we can go. So the police officers went, and then immediately, actually for the first time in that hour and 40-minute period of time, I actually had something to do. I had something that I needed to do, which was that I needed to tell my children. And so I went into the living room, and I sat down with them and told them, and you don't know what you're going to say in that situation, but I was very aware that whatever I said was going to be their experience that they carry for the rest of their lives. And so I was trying to be really, really careful to choose what that experience would look and feel like for them. And for everybody that was there. Eric was there, Brinley was there. After talking to Eric later, I found out he was really in shock to hear the news that Jess had died. I feel like I was less shocked, just seeing the injury, seeing how badly he was hurt. I think I was not surprised to hear that was the case, but I went in and told my babies. It only took a few minutes to tell them, and then pretty immediately Eric and I thought, well, we got to go to the hospital. And so we get in the car, and I call my dad and tell him, and that's really hard. But then after that, immediately Eric and I were just trying to think of all the things that could have gone worse. Mm-hmm. All the things that went the very best they could have gone. Just the fact that Eric was there, I don't think was an accident. I think it's something that Jess was very aware of. And it was, we just, Jack was in the shower. And because he was in the shower at midnight, randomly, he had woken up thinking that it was the morning and thinking, oh, I got to get ready for school, which made no sense because he had no school that morning.
And that has never
happened. And
then you scale it down to that 10-minute window.
He just happened to be in the shower during that point and heard nothing.
Yeah.
In fact, it was after everything, the firefighters had gotten there, the ambulance had gotten there, and I realized, oh my gosh, where's Jack? And I went bolting to the stairwell to try and go find Jack because I hadn't seen him. And Jack bounds around the stairs. He told me later that he knew right away something was just very, very wrong. And he went and joined Brinley and the girls in the bathroom. But the thing was that the girls heard the commotion. They heard all of us reacting. They heard their mother screaming. But Jack didn't hear any of it. And I don't think he was supposed to. Mm-hmm. I think that there was a really particular reason that he was in the shower in that very moment. And there was a particular reason that Eric and Brinley were there at the house. And there's a particular reason that it that the bullet did exactly everything that Jess intended it to do without causing more trauma than it did for him or for any of us. There's just a lot of details about the medical aspect of the situation that are kind of unbelievable as far as what was preserved in his physical body. And so Eric and I, on the way there to the hospital in the truck, we had about an hour drive. Mm-hmm. And it was probably less because Eric was driving, but we had a good amount of time to talk about how blessed we felt like we were, and that we weren't alone, and that Jess wasn't alone. So that was an instant response, I think, for the two of us to decide that that's how we were going to try and process this, that we were going to try and recognize every miracle, and that this wasn't happening to us.
That could have been significantly worse. And the more that we talked about it, the more that we realized, wow, this particular situation is so unique in the difference in how bad it could have been to what it actually was. Yeah. And it's hard to say that because you consider what the outcome is still, right?
Oh, yeah. It's horrifying.
Yeah. It's still traumatic.
It doesn't take away from the fact that we all lost him, but it makes you realize that it made me realize that that's not the end of my story. Mm-hmm. That's not going to be our story, and it wasn't supposed to be our story. It's supposed to be one part that we all make it through. Yeah. So we went to the hospital, and they had put him on life support so that we could donate his organs. We all took turns going. Jake and Eric went into the room first. I went into the room with Jake after that. It was pretty rough. Yeah. It was really, really rough. The kids were at home. And then we realized that it was a Wednesday morning, and we have our company meetings on Wednesday mornings. And so we all had, a minute to get together and talk, and it was decided that Eric would go to the office and he would talk to our staff, and that Jake and I would wrap things up at the hospital, and then we'd meet back at home with Brinley and the kids. And thinking back on it, it was pretty insane that we went from everything that happened. I mean, none of us really slept. I was asleep for maybe 15 minutes before it happened. You may have been asleep about the same time, Eric. Yeah. Same thing with Jake. And so we all go through that experience. We're up all night, and then immediately we got to go to the office. You've got to go and handle that conversation.
Yeah, and it, fortunately, we have a really good personal relationship with our managers, especially Aaron Davis, who's our service manager, who's been with Natura for how many years?
7.
7 years now?
7 years.
Yeah. We've been through a lot with Aaron. Yeah. So I know that the technician meeting, which he runs every Wednesday morning, that's going to happen, 7, 8 a.m. Yep. And I can get to the office about 20, 30 minutes before he gets there, and I'm thinking, okay, I'm great. I'm going to go. I'll meet him there. I'll deliver the news. And Jana did something which I am so grateful for, which you called Aaron, and you kind of gave him a heads up.
I felt like he had to hear it from me. Yeah. I called him, and he was on the road, and I had him pull over, and it was a pretty short conversation. He, gosh, I love Aaron. He just, he was shattered, for us. And I told him that you'd be there at the office waiting for him. So he came here and met up with you.
Yeah, he, by the time that he came in, I was cried out, emotions and adrenaline and everything else. I almost didn't have any more tears left, but, he came in and, we both had a big hug, and we talked a little bit, and I shared some of the details, and I actually shared some of those miracles that we talked about with him. And that was kind of the first indication for me that I was so grateful we had like a manager, like a support staff, like a system. We didn't even put the system in place. It was just there.
That's just who he was.
Yeah, that's him, right? He's there, personally and professionally, for anything that we need, right? And I remember thinking, like, what would I have done? What would we have done if we didn't have that? All of a sudden, and so I talked to Aaron, and I said, hey, as soon as all the technicians get here, I'll kind of deliver the news. I'll go deliver the news to all the office staff once they get here, right? And I actually talked to our office manager first, right after Aaron, and she was so sweet. I remember bringing her in and saying, hey, I've got some really terrible news. And she said,
she grabbed your hand.
Yeah, she asked, she goes, is it okay if I hold your hand? And I said, yeah, I would like that, actually. And I told her what happened, and she was heartbroken, of course. And the other thing is that Jake and Jana's kids and my kids have spent a lot of time here. Jake and Jana's kids, more than anybody else. They were definitely not in any kind of way strangers to the office.
No, the office was in our house for many years.
Yeah, and so Nina, our office manager, she had met those kids, and she knew Jess personally, like very personally.
Yeah. Yep.
And so it wasn't just delivering news of a trauma or a tragedy to an employee. It was delivering news of a loss of a loved one that we both shared. Mm-hmm. And so, she was really supportive. Aaron was very supportive. And then it was actually kind of hard. It was awkward and weird and uncomfortable to stand up in front of a group of employees who have no idea what you're about to say.
No.
They're right in the middle of this meeting where they're about to talk about carpenter ants and non-repellents, right? And I stand up and I say, hey, there's really no easy way to say this. There's been a tragedy, and I tell them what happened, and just their faces, they were just in complete shock, and I don't even think they really said anything, and I just said, hey, we're going to kind of take some time for us. And if you guys want to send flowers, Nina can help with that. And Nina did help with that. She was great.
I think we told all of them that if any of them needed time that day
if you need
or
to take
that
some
week,
extra time,
just to let us know so that we can make sure and accommodate those people.
Yeah, we were prepared. And that's another thing that is kind of amazing, maybe about the culture is, we've always intermixed and intermingled our family and our professional life.
Yeah, there's not really a
separation.
There's not really a separation between church and state when it comes to the family and the business.
Yeah, I can't say that I even gave it much thought to think what's the right way. Like when something like that happens to you personally, do you immediately go to your office staff, to your employees and say, hey, this thing happened? Like, do you do that? Do you share it with them? Do you put that heavy news on them at the beginning of a day, or do you keep it to yourself and, wait a couple days? I didn't even think about if there's a right or a wrong way to do it. There was just really, for us, only one way.
Yeah.
And that's the way we've done everything in business, which is just to treat our business like our family. And so we were prepared to bring them into the situation and handle the consequence of that, and to know that, you know, if it affected them negatively, then we needed to make accommodations for that. And there was just no other way to do it. There was no separating it for me.
No, and they credit to them. You know, I mean, it was emotionally difficult for everybody in the company. The management team, the technician team, the office staff, every person that I told or had to deliver the news to, I could see and feel how much of an impact that it had. And, you know, we were a little bit more disconnected that week, right? We got to kind of step away from the business and focus on our family and focus on each other. And the business kept going.
They kept everything together.
Yeah, they kept everything running. Routes got done. Customers were serviced. The phones got answered.
We wondered about, you know, communicating it to our customer base. We wondered if
should we tell
Should we tell our customers? Should we not?
And we never did. We never did. It never. I never felt like I could do it in a way that didn't seem like I was trying to use it in some way to draw attention to Natura.
Like there was no organic element that we could communicate it to.
Right, but what I wanted, what I was hoping to get out there was just, hey, we're still here. You know, like we're available. I'm sorry if Jake's not as responsive as he normally is, or sorry if, you know, Eric or I aren't there to handle a situation. We would be, except we've got this thing going on. And so that's what I was concerned about. But really, I don't think it was necessary, because I think that our staff did a great job making it as if nothing were missing, nothing were wrong. And the mistake, I think, maybe that, and I'll speak for, I guess, Jake and I, in that we thought, okay, best thing we can do is come back to the office as soon as possible.
Well, it wasn't just that. I mean, there's a gal that
some people give us that advice.
Yeah, there's a gal that goes to our church she's actually a trauma therapist, like by trade, for like 40 years. She's
a social worker.
And so there was a meeting. So that happened on a Wednesday morning. Actually, that was a very, very, very bizarre week.
Yeah.
I mean, there's really no way to describe it. You know, you're just in this state of shock, like, because this is your boy. You know, this is our boy. He was just here. You know, we were just jumping on the trampoline. You know, like, we were just together, and all of a sudden, he's never going to be here ever again. And there's that, and then there's also this element, like this trauma element, right? So, and I've been thinking about this, like how to describe it, because it's hard to describe, like the trauma element. But imagine that you're terrified of a monster under the bed, right? Mm-hmm. And you know there's not really a monster under the bed, but every once in a while you hear a noise, and you're like, oh my gosh, it's that monster under the bed. Or you look up and you're like, I see the monster in the corner of my room, but it's just a bathrobe hanging on the exercise bike, right? And there's never really a monster. There is no monster. There's not really a monster. And then all of a sudden, one night, you wake up to a sound, and not only is it the monster, it is way more terrifying than you ever could have imagined. And that terror, like, it rips through you. It kind of rips you apart. And so that's what we're like. We're trying to comprehend that, and comprehend the loss of our son, and keep everybody's spirits up at the same time. And So that happened on a Wednesday morning. Thursday night is youth night at church, and we said, hey, we want to come talk to the
We have a really
youth.
big group of youth, there was 50 of them there probably.
Yeah, I think so. And parents and...
Yeah, and we were worried about the effect that this news would have on the youth, because Jess was a pretty integral part.
Oh, Jess was the biggest bird. I mean,
he was a very popular friend.
Everybody,
to the group.
yeah. Jess's personality, you cannot miss him.
You can't ignore him.
Like,
He
you
doesn't
can't
allow
ignore
it.
Yeah, he is.
Yep.
He's like a bright neon sign. Like, you just can't.
Yeah.
And everybody copies his mannerisms, and he's like the trendsetter. He was just like everybody's best friend.
So we were so worried.
So,
we
yeah.
were worried about how it would affect all these other families that we care about, and their teenagers and their kids. And so we decided that, instead of the activities that they had planned, Jake and I would just get together and go tell them what happened and make sure that they didn't have unanswered questions and things that were just burning a curious hole in their minds, and make sure that they know what they need to know, and that we can create a dialogue and a space for them to talk about how they feel and how it affected them. So we did that on Thursday, and it was an amazing experience. It really was, for us, for our kids, for the families. And that was Thursday. And then Sunday we have this meeting with all the parents, that want to go, and about what can we do? What can we do to take care of our kids and to be aware of things? And she said, getting back into your regular routine is crucial. And so what do we do the next day? Go to the office.
Yep.
That's what we thought would be the best thing. And
this is, at this point...
5 days later?
At this point, Jess is still on life support. Like, his body is on life support.
It had actually...
Oh, no, you're right.
They had done the surgery at 1 o'clock Monday morning.
Was it Monday? I thought it was
1 o'clock,
Sunday.
Sunday night.
Oh, Sunday night,
1
right.
o'clock Monday morning.
Yeah.
And
so
then
Jan and I had
day,
just that middle of the night, Sunday. Because when they do organ donation, they've got to coordinate. There's a organ donation alliance, and they coordinate with all of these surgeons around the country that are in need of whatever organ, right? And so we've got to coordinate with these people. And so they come, and we went in the middle of the night, Sunday night, and did what's called an honor walk, where the family, it was just Jana and I. The kids didn't want to see Jess. They understood that Jess wasn't there. It's just his body. So Jana and I went middle of the night.
Yeah.
And we did an honor walk, and we walked with Jess to the elevators where they were going to take him down to surgery. So that's middle of the night, Sunday night. Monday, we come back to work, and it was, it sucked. I mean, there's really no other way around it. It felt so foreign. I felt sick being at work. It was like I shouldn't be here, right? And then the next day, Tuesday, we've got podcasts. No. The week later, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. So that Friday, we had Jess's funeral.
Yeah.
And it was an incredible experience. We went with the kids to go pick out a casket, and all the caskets were like old people caskets, right? They're like frilly and shiny and round, and they've got brass and stuff all over them.
Don't get me wrong, they were beautiful.
They're
Just
nice,
not for
but
Jess.
for grandma, not
style.
for Jess, right? And so we're like, these caskets suck. Do you have anything different? And so he's like, well, we got some online. So we went and we looked online, and there's this square-ish. It's a flat top. It's really cool looking. It's a nice looking casket, but it's made out of it actually matched the trim in our house. It was like the same as the trim in our house, like knotty pine or knotty alder or something like that.
Yeah, like a lighter pine looking. Yeah.
And Jana has this idea. Hey, first of all, there's no way in hell we're doing an open casket, just because open caskets are just weird. that's how we felt about it, right? Like we just didn't want to do that. And my feeling has always been that 80% of the people that walk up to say goodbye to the person in an open casket are just curious to see a dead body, you know, like, and so we're like, we're not going to do that with Jess. So Jana has this idea. Why don't we get paint pens or paint markers and stickers, and we'll just keep the casket closed, and we'll bring it in, and, you know, before the funeral, and we can just invite everybody to come and write a message on it, to paint on it or whatever. And it was incredible. That was one of the most incredible experiences, because it was like a party, just the way Jess would have wanted, right? Everybody's talking and laughing and sharing, and it was just...
We looked over to the casket, and it's on the stand where they roll it in, you know, and so that you can access all around it. And there are kids underneath it, laying underneath it, writing messages. They're writing messages on the top, on the sides, on the ends. I mean,
painting pictures.
That there wasn't an inch of room around that casket for 90 minutes solid, because it was just...
Oh, it's elbow to elbow.
Just kids writing and drawing and putting stickers. And
it took the scariness out of the funeral. And instead of it being scary and somber and sad, it was bright. And I don't want to say fun, but it was the way that we wanted Jess's memorial to be. You know, people having fun and remembering him. And, you know, Jess always said, "I'm the biggest bird." I don't know exactly where that came from, but Jess would always say, "I'm the biggest bird. I'm the biggest bird." You know, and so we'd mentioned that before, and everybody, all of his friends, everybody knew Jess, "I'm the biggest bird." So people are painting birds, and there's my niece painted this beautiful parrot or macaw on the side of the casket, and another friend painted a phoenix on top. And anyway, it was just awesome. Everybody that was there said, "We have never seen anything like this. When I die, this is what I want." you know. So it was great. So that was on a Friday, and then the next Tuesday, we had podcasts episodes to record. In fact, Firehouse. That was our first podcast back, was with Firehouse Pest.
Yeah, well, and we had canceled podcast episodes the previous week.
Yeah,
you know, and it was and I didn't even know what to say. You know, I mean, we text our producer, who's so great. Her name's Becky. I think we mentioned her before.
Dude, she's the best.
She's the best. And you know, we kind of give her a heads up, like, hey, we've had this tragedy. We have to cancel episodes, and I honestly don't know when we're going to reschedule these.
Yeah.
Because like there's some times that you can just turn it on, right? It's like, okay, like I'm having a tough day, I'm pissed off, I'm annoyed or whatever, but I've got a podcast episode, so pow, I'm going to turn on Eric podcast mode and go, you know. And they're just like, that was not working.
Yeah.
You know, and I even remember the first couple episodes when we did record. There was an element to that where it's like, okay, I can pull this off. Like if I can just turn off my brain for a second and jump into podcast mode, I'm good. But there was so much about the situation that was still permeating through me, and I was still trying to understand and recover from. And like, I think we've all kind of realized that you can't rush trauma recovery. You know, and no matter what you do, you know, you could be happy one day,
or happy 1 hour,
of the day, you know, and then the next you're just completely destroyed, and then anywhere in between on any part of the spectrum at any point in time, anywhere, like, you know, and so it was difficult trying to operate in a professional capacity, not knowing what I was going to be feeling at any point in the day.
Yeah.
And there were plenty of times where I had to take a walk, take a breather, you know, make a phone call. And I think I'm sure it was kind of a similar thing for you guys, but yeah, being back in the office after a week or two, it felt very foreign, like Jake was saying.
Well, what happened to me, or the experience that I had, is that coming back to the office that soon, it's like all of a sudden being at the office is associated with like the gutted feeling of that trauma, you know? And so coming to the office, coming to work, like, I'll be totally honest, like, the reason why we're doing this podcast is because we're a full transparency, right? Like, if there's something going on, if our experience can benefit the pest control industry in any way, like, we want to share it. And so the problem that I had is that I came into the office, I think, too soon, and it just gutted me being at the office. It felt like I was betraying Jess, like I was leaving him behind, you know, like I just put him in the ground and then just go back to normal life, and that made me feel sick. And for a long time, I had a hard time wanting to come back to work. And fortunately, the real blessing, and, you know, I was going to say this earlier, but, you know, I've heard people say, especially right at the beginning, people say, you know, this is all part of God's plan. And, you know, the truth of it is that I don't necessarily agree with that, in the sense that I don't think that God plans things like this. You know, I don't think that that's how it works. I think in his infinite wisdom, God knows that things like this are going to happen to people on earth. That's what earth life is all about, right? It's not supposed to be easy. But because of that, God has a plan for us, right? And so in that light, like, we look back at all of the miraculous, blessed things that have happened over the past 3 months, and you can see a loving God's fingerprints all over everything. I mean, in every single little detail. Every little detail. I mean, there's quote unquote coincidences, and I'll just be straightforward. I do not believe in coincidences. I think if you experience a coincidence that is timed perfectly, then that's like a divine intervention, right? Or a divine cross street or whatever. One of those, just real briefly, we were trying to find a plot for Jess, and there's a cemetery in our fire district that has a gorgeous view. It's called Mountain View, and it's just phenomenal. It's this little cemetery on top of a hill. And a couple Halloweens ago, a friend of Jess's friend's mom took Jess and his friend to the cemetery at midnight on Halloween, and they're running around shirtless, howling at the moon and stuff on Halloween, right? And so there's this memory of that cemetery. So we say, well, that's got to be the cemetery for sure. And so then we contact them. They send us a plot site map. And we're looking at it, we're like, okay, this plot right here is perfect. And so we zoom in on the zoom in close up, and it shows the names of people that have reserved plots. And the plot that we picked for Jess was directly above the plot that had been picked out for my fire chief at the department. You know, and it's like just these little things, you know, like it's almost like God saying, hey, guys, I know this is really hard right now, but let's try to see some silver lining, and everything will be okay in the end. And if it's not okay, it's not the end, you know? And so, so anyway, I don't know really where I was going with that, other than just I felt like I needed to say that. And, you know, now here we are 3 months. Today's July 31st. That's the day we're recording this. And it's been 3 months and 1 week. And there are times where, like, we're totally fine. Like it's life, you know? We're watching the Olympics. We're having dinner together as a family.
Laughing.
We're laughing, telling jokes, together. And then I'll go out to the garden that we built for Jess to pull some weeds or whatever, and I'll just totally come unstitched. And we've just learned how that when you start to feel like you're coming unstitched, just let it through. Just let it happen, you know? And at the very beginning, my trauma filter was completely broken. And so people that didn't need to hear all the details, they'd be like, Jake, how are you? And I'm like, oh, details. And they're like, ah. So like I've learned how to like manage that a little bit better, I think. And I've learned how to not come unstitched when I shouldn't come unstitched, because I don't want to feel like I need to make it other people's responsibility to console me, you know? So.
Yeah. Well, and I, you know, kind of like we were talking about before, with regard to how me and Jana kind of view situations, and how we kind of immediately like the, I don't want to say like the knee-jerk reaction to bad situations, but kind of like Jake was saying, you see what you're looking for. You know what I mean? If you have a kind of a traumatic experience and you know that there are likely those fingerprints, those miraculous little things that are stitched in there. If you look for them, you can find them, right? In fact, you can find those little things in nearly any traumatic experience, or anything that is otherwise just looks like a complete shiz show. Otherwise, right? If what you're, and it's hard to look past that. It's hard to look past the damage and the trauma, and look for things that could possibly help you move past that, right? And sometimes, and everybody handles trauma differently, right? Sometimes you need that time. Sometimes you need to be able to be in the mix of it, so that you can experience it the way that you need to before you move on. And that's fine too. Everybody moves on differently. But I think that if you choose to ignore those little miracles, you're missing out on something that can be very special for you, that can make a huge difference later on. Because I don't know. I mean, we've had all these firsts, you know. I mean, you have your first week without Jess, you have your first month without Jess, you do your first family home evening, first church. You know, we had our first 4th of July without Jess, first birthday, Jess's birthday without him. And so like there's going to be reminders everywhere you go for the rest of your life. And some of those little tender mercies, those miracles, just help you move through those a little bit easier, I think.
Yeah,
I think something that I've figured out is that the difficulty professionally, which I didn't really foresee, because I thought, okay, that thing happened to me personally, I'm going to put it in a box and decide that I'm going to be okay regardless, right? So then professionally, there's no reason why I'm going to be negatively affected, which is not true at all, obviously.
Again, that whole, there's no separation between church and state. Right?
So the thing that's been surprising is that when we experienced that, I had a little bit of an identity crisis. You know, I had an identity crisis as a person, but also as a mother and as a wife. And so I realized that crisis bled into my professional life, because all of a sudden, you know, when you're questioning who you are as a mother and how you've handled everything up until that point, and how you handle your relationships, and what, if any, regrets do you have, and all of this is floating around, and then you're sitting in the office and you realize, well, what am I doing here? And who am I here? And what am I supposed to be here? And, you know, you're trying to figure out this new person, because you're not the same person. You're just not. When something like that happens, you come out on the other side a different person who's playing by a different set of rules, who has a totally different input. And it's unknown. It's foreign. And so, you know, I knew, okay, I'm the owner of a business. You know, I run a business. I have a family. I go to church. You know, you have all these things, but who you are in all of those things is different. It's fundamentally different.
Yeah.
And some of those roles you figure out quicker, and some it takes longer. Like even just today, I had a conversation with somebody that made me feel more at home in my professional identity
Well, you're in
than
your
I
element.
have felt.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you just question who am I? What value do I bring? You know, what value am I supposed to be bringing? Where am I coming up short? And all of those things play on you when something traumatic happens, and you think, how do I figure this out? How do I make progress? And it's just little by little, these little things happen. And today it was just a phone call from a friend in the industry that just needed help. And it wasn't even that he needed help with something big. It was just a little thing that he wanted advice on. And man, the poor guy, I must have said, call me anytime. Call me. He's like, I don't want to bug you. And I'm like, no. Call me tomorrow. Call me the next day. Call me every week. Because it just helps you. It helps you feel more comfortable in those shoes again. It makes you realize, I'm still here. I can still do this. Like the parts of me that died, maybe they're gone. Maybe they changed. But there are parts of you that are still here, and so much of you that can still be better. Like the potential for you is still there, and in some ways it's greater because of what you've experienced and because of the way that you can connect with people, and that you can see the world with a bigger perspective. I think that's probably what I'm most grateful for, is the perspective. We don't get as mad about the little things anymore. If something crazy happens with the business, it's like, maybe that's just a level 7 now, because level 10 is something different.
Yep.
Yeah.
It gives you a perspective, and you can look at the next 10 years and say more clearly, what do I want? What do I need to put in place so that I can really create what I want? What ways was I holding myself back that now I can say, you know what? We're not going to do that anymore. We're not going to hold ourselves back. I'm not going to get in my own way when I'm trying to get to what I really want.
Yeah, and we were talking about this the other day, and losing Jess and everything that has surrounded it has fundamentally changed us. I know for me, it has fundamentally changed me. Like Jana said, part of you dies, and the part of me that died was this part that holds on to things that are insignificant. Part of me that died was this thing that cares about winning the little arguments. The part of me that justifies being too busy for the family. The part of me that gets into the thick of thin things, And since Jess has died, it's like all of a sudden I feel like I have this hot air balloon perspective, and when you have a hot air balloon perspective, the big things are still visible, but the little things down below, you don't see them anymore, and they don't matter because you can see the big picture things. And I truly feel like through this, God is helping me become a better person. I feel like I'm a better father. I feel like I'm trying to become a better husband. What do you think, babe? She's like, you got a long way to go. But I feel like I'm trying to become a better husband. I feel like I'm becoming a better disciple. I feel like just every part of me feels like it's been elevated.
Yeah.
And if there's a silver lining, it's that the silver lining is that we truly believe that we'll see Jess again. I mean, truly. And in order for that to be the best experience possible, I've got to be the best person that I can be possible. And I really feel like the change that's happened, like I care more about people. I care more about, I don't know, I just feel like I want to my objective is to make a difference in people's lives, like genuinely make a difference in people's lives, and especially to make a difference in my family's life, and especially in, my friends' lives. So,
I'm definitely more aware of what people are going through. At least I try to be more aware of what people are going through, and less judgmental.
Oh, yeah.
Like there's so many things that I felt so confident about before this. You think you've got it all figured out. You think you know what's up. And then something like this happens and you realize, I don't know anything that I thought. And if that's true, if I don't know anything about, what's going on in my own little circle, what do I not know about all these other people that I care about?
Yeah.
And what is hard for me to see about their life and what they're going through. And I think that there's just a lot more room to see people where they are. And I think we're trying to set an example in the company of assuming positive intent, and just...
And giving leeway.
And giving
Like,
people some room
perfect.
and forgiving, and business, it's not just numbers.
Yeah.
I mean, a successful business, I believe, is not just numbers.
No.
It's about the people. And at least if you do it right, if you're doing it right, it's about the people.
Yeah.
And the numbers, they fall where they may, and it all works out. But I really do believe that that this has given us the opportunity to grow in a lot of ways. I mean, I've never felt before like as a business partnership, our family has been more confident that we can make it through just about anything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, truly.
Yeah.
Well, and we've our history in and out of pest control has been kind of crazy.
Yeah.
We've all done some crazy stuff in our partnership, in our growth as business owners, sacrifices that we've had, and nothing was ever to this scale.
No.
And like you said before, the one thing that was so unique about it is that we are the three business partners in the company, and we're all family members.
Yep.
And what happened to all of us at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I got to say too how absolutely touching and transformative it's been for some of our relationships to get the response that we've gotten from other people, other business partners that we have, Alan and Hunter went out of their way to make sure that we felt all of the support and the room. And I think Alan even said like, hey, I just wanted to call and I was just going to get on a plane and fly there. And I was just going to, and I'm like, what were we going to do, Alan?
Well, I remember seeing Alan and Hunter and Matt
Rogers.
Matt
dude.
Rogers
Was at the
from
funeral.
freaking South Carolina.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I looked up and all of a sudden there's Alan. We were at the luncheon before the funeral.
And Alan said, I was going to come and just run Natura for you guys as long as you needed me. I mean, he was just so sweet. And Matt's there and Hunter's there.
Yeah, I was so surprised when I looked up and I saw those three. And I was like, Matt Rogers, you son of a gun, dude. You came all the way over here.
It just, and people sent flowers. And people just, and I feel like we were pretty quiet about it for a while. I don't know if a lot of people in the industry knew what was going on, but the people that knew, oh my gosh, they showed up.
They did.
Yeah.
They really did.
And it makes me love the industry more. And like you said, it deepened the relationships that we have with a lot of different people.
Yeah.
And there are people that you haven't talked to in a long time. I mean, in ways, I feel like loss can have the opportunity to do that, where it brings people back
Yeah.
together.
Oh, totally.
You know,
Yep.
Weddings and funerals.
weddings and funerals. Yeah.
Yep.
And I think for me, and I think I've been getting better at this, but I think you remember there was a time, especially the beginning of maybe my Natura journey, where I was really particular about keeping things the same.
No, I don't remember that.
Just like, what do you mean? You kind of OCD guy, right? And I feel like I've been getting more and more flexible over time.
Yeah.
But sometimes it takes an event
Yeah.
like this, where you kind of take a step back and you think about what matters and what doesn't really matter. And that has been changing me.
Oh, how many things? How many things have we talked about just in the last couple weeks that they were like dead in the water ideas?
Oh, yeah.
Like, absolutely not. That all of a sudden we're like, you know what? Maybe we should consider that.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Those are all my ideas. Thanks, guys.
Okay, that might be true.
Yeah, but it's, like ways that we're thinking about running the business, involvement in the business, quality involvement in
Well,
the business.
future,
Yeah.
Yeah,
and like all of a sudden the big picture.
Yeah, and so you have an event like this that forces you to open up your paradigms and change things and be willing to be different and think about what's really important. And so for me, the biggest thing is just being a little bit more flexible.
Pain and potential go side by side.
Wow.
Like you just.
Did you read
That's-
that somewhere? You just say that. Oh my gosh, we're gonna put that.
I'm writing
on
it down and stealing
vinyl
it.
letters in the kitchen.
Oh my gosh!
Pardon?
No more with the vinyl lettering.
Okay, I'll
that
try to
also
find
ended a long
An
time ago.
early 2000s, live, laugh, love.
Yeah, but it's true. It's seriously, that's been the last 3 months, is that like there's so much pain, but there's no way, I truly believe that there's no way that personally or professionally we would reach where we're going to go without it. Like the potential just wouldn't have been the same.
Yeah, we really did have to open up our minds to different opportunities in different ways that we just, like you said before, had completely shot down.
And that's what Jess would have wanted.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jess is a big thinker. Before we recorded this podcast, we were just sitting there talking and trying to figure out, well, how do we want to do this and why do we want to do this? And,
none of it's scripted.
yeah.
We never know what
Well,
the heck we're
last-
going to say.
And I think it was Monday, or maybe it was yesterday, we hit 100,000 downloads.
Yeah.
And what's our monthly listenership? Is it 4,000?
4,500 maybe.
So we're talking, and I said, I feel like this is an important thing for us to talk about. I feel like this is an important this is an important topic for the podcast, because every month there are 4,000 people that either listen to all or part, or that maybe just push play and then say, no, Joe Rogan's more interesting. I'm gonna, but every month there's 4,000 downloads, 4,000 people listening to this podcast, and of those 4,000 people, what's the likelihood that something traumatic or awful, or even just something that sucks, is going to happen to one of those people? And I'm not trying to cast any voodoo spells or anything, but like just numbers game. Every crappy stuff happens in everybody's life.
Yeah.
And this is a super crappy thing that happened in our life. However, it doesn't have to all be crappy. Like, just because it's a crappy situation doesn't mean that you have to respond crapply to it. And, a brilliant person once said, pain and potential go side by side. And that's truly like that kind of sums it up. We have had this event in our life that has dramatically, completely altered us in every way. But in 90% of the change that's happened in us, I would say, at least for me, it's all positive. In fact, I'm having a hard time thinking of a negative way that this is impacting. I really am trying to think.
Yeah. I don't feel like, other than the initial trauma and pain that you kind of go through, as you're healing, it's all for me too.
Yeah.
It's opening my eyes. Like you said, it's kind of lifting you up. It's changing your perspective and your paradigms on things.
Yeah.
And I'm not jaded. I'm not, You know, like I think about other things that have happened that have made me mad, or I've been frustrated about, or have been painful, and you come out the other side of that, and you're averse. You're like, you want to stay away from relationships, or you don't want to do that thing again, or whatever. And this has only made me want to spend more time with family. It wants me to have better communication with people. Yeah. It wants me to be closer to people I've been further away from in the past.
Yeah. Oh gosh, yeah.
Be a better servant to people.
Yeah.
Yeah. I talked to the Noelle Goins the other day, and I just bawled my eyes out. And I'm sure that, she's on the other side just, feeling like she loves me and whatever, but also it's like, what do you say? What do you say to someone? Yeah. And the truth is, she didn't really have to say very much, but she was just there. She's a friend, friend in the industry. And I just love her. And whether you're in a good place or a bad place, or whether those places change dramatically every hour of the day, I think that it's important to reach out and talk to the people you care about. And for anybody that's out there that having a bad day, I mean, call me. Reach out to us.
Yeah, no kidding.
And I was going to say, if you're listening and if you're going through something right now, or
you
go through something in the future, or whatever's going on, and you're not sure how to handle it, you can reach out to us.
Oh, absolutely.
We'd be happy to talk to you, because we got a lot of support from loved ones, from friends in the industry, from family. And if for any reason you go through something and you're thinking, I wish I had more support, reach out. Yeah, we can help.
Well, I had a.
Maybe we can't help, but at least we can.
We can try.
Hear. We might not be able to help, but we can hear.
Yeah.
I had a key life-altering experience about a week and a half after Jess died. I was at the hardware store, or we have a little hardware store in our town, right? And I went to the hardware store, and I can't remember. I had to get something, and a neighbor, an older guy in our neighborhood, sees me at the hardware store, and he stops me and he puts his hand on my shoulder, and he says, Jake, I am so sorry. I know exactly what you're going through. And I was like, holy crap. You lost a son to suicide? And I'm like, my heart is broken for him, right? Mm-hmm. And he goes, well, no, not a child. But I know exactly what you're going through. And I paid for my stuff, and I walked out, and I was like, you son of a bitch. Like, pardon my French, But I was so mad. Mm-hmm. How dare he freaking say that he knows how I feel? How could you possibly know how I feel? And I'm stewing about it the whole way I'm driving home. And I get home, and I tell Jana, you won't believe what, I won't say his name, you won't believe what he said to me in the hardware store. And Jana was like, I can't remember what you said, but you were like, was it you that said, it's not a trauma competition? Maybe was it you that said that?
Yeah, that sounds
And
like
I was
me.
like, oh, you're right. And I had this like flash of inspiration. It's not a trauma competition.
Yeah.
People don't, unless you actually have lost a 14-year-old son to a suicide in exactly the same way, you have no idea what it feels like. But does that mean that I want people to go through that experience so they know exactly how it feels? No way. Not in a million years, right?
Yeah.
And so everybody has their own point of reference for a traumatic experience, right? And maybe the peak level of your traumatic experience is that you lost your grandma when you were 5, and you've never experienced anything more traumatic than that. Mm-hmm. That's your baseline. That's your point of reference. That's okay. I'm empathetic to that. Maybe the most traumatic thing that's ever happened to you is your dog died. Now, if you say to me, I know exactly how you feel. My dog died last year or last month or whatever. Me, 3 months ago, would have probably wanted to punch you in the face. Mm-hmm. But after that experience, it totally changed. Like, if someone were to say that to me now, I would genuinely, empathetically say, I am so sorry. What was your dog's name, right? Because that is their point of reference. And so for me, it's like people say, oh, I'm so sorry. I don't mean to bring this up to you. I know that you've gone through something. And my thought is, well, what I say is, it's okay. Whatever's going on in your life is important. So I'm just piggybacking on what Eric and Jan have said. If there's something happening in your life and you're like, man, I don't know if anybody will understand
or
what
care.
this feels like, or care.
Yep.
Yeah, dude, just what is it, DM or PM? What do they call it? AM? Just AM, PM us. run DMC us on Instagram or Facebook or whatever. And dude, we're not just talking heads behind microphones on a podcast. We're people who care, who feel, and who care about other people. And if you need someone to talk to or someone to listen, just reach out. I mean, we're here. We're here for the industry, and we care.
I think as an industry, there are so many people who feel that way and who share that position. That's one thing that I love about this, is that, when the cards are on the table, people show who they really are, and there is so much genuine helpfulness and caring that gets shared. So
totally.
Yeah. No, I think so too.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, this has been a different kind of episode.
Yeah.
I think this has been actually really
Sorry
awesome.
for all of you that looked at it and saw how long we've been talking. For all of you that looked and saw that the episode is 6 hours long and still listened all the way to the end, my hat goes off to you.
Yeah.
10 bonus points.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the typical outro, that I usually say. And honestly, the first line is that we appreciate the listeners. We appreciate them taking the time to tune in, to listen to what we have to say. We appreciate all the thanks that we get from putting this stuff out there. And if you guys have a coworker, manager, owner, right, who you think this could make an impact for, it would make a difference in their life and how they manage and how they operate and how they live, we would love it if you would just share this episode with them.
And this is definitely not a pest control specific episode.
No, definitely not.
If you know someone that's an HVAC or a nurse or whatever, someone, share it.
Yeah, if you know anybody doing anything, and of course, it still kind of blows my mind if you listen to this podcast, you're not in the Facebook group. So find the Facebook group. It's Bug Bucks Plus. Lots of information and even better connections in that group. And we're always looking for new topics to discuss on the podcast. So if you have a topic you want discussed, drop it in the group. We'll grab it, bring it into the podcast, talk about it. And again, just thank you guys so much for taking the time to listen in. And of course, until next time, keep building those pest control companies.
And don't forget to subscribe.
listening to the Bug Bucks Podcast, hosted by Eric Bassett and Jake Klaus.